It was now time for Dr. Sebi to take all the valuable information he accumulated over the years and put it to good use. Dr. Sebi would start his quest for natural healing remedies on the island of Dominica. Dr. Sebi's efforts were quickly stalled when a newly selected and appointed prime minister learned of his operations on the island. Dr. Sebi was quickly deported from the island. Dr. Sebi would end up in St. Croix, and he finally had a home and his first healing natural remedy storefront on 429 King Street. Sebi was able to find refuge in St. Croix. Dr. Sebi's first storefront in St. Croix didn't get a lot of customers, and it wasn't the fact that the people of St. Croix didn't grasp his natural healing remedies and his concepts or his products. He felt like they treated him as he was a foreigner to the island. So Dr. Sebi would use the next 2 years in St. Croix to travel to other countries and islands on his wellness campaign. He then moved to Puerto Rico. Dr. Sebi's business had grown tremendously at this point. Dr. Sebi would use Puerto Rico as a home base as he traveled to places like Colombia, Venezuela, Aruba, and St. Martin to do more business. During this time, Dr. Sebi had been invited to the United States to do lectures about his experiences, what he's grown to learn, and also to upsell his wellness products. This would end up being one of the most important periods in Dr. Sebi's life and legacy. A woman by the name of Adio Kumba was a woman Dr. Sebi met while in St. Croix. She invited Dr. Sebi to Chocolate City, aka Washington, D.C., to speak at a place called the Community Warehouse. Dr. Sebi would speak in front of crowds as large as 700 people. The one thing Dr. Sebi noticed is when he brought up hybrid vegetables and started to really challenge the audience thoughts, sometimes it didn't go over too well with the audience.
Dr. Sebi actually taught me how to make salves, how to make hair products, how to make skin products, and how to make tonics. And I learned most of that at the community warehouse, which was located in Washington, D.C. Sebi was there for on and off for 3 years and actually staying at the warehouse when he was. He had his own room there. And when he brought an assistant, they also had a room that they stayed in at the warehouse. Sebi prepared herbs when he was at the warehouse, and he also taught workshops at the warehouse about how to prepare herbs. So this is where, or that was where I learned about healing through herbs and how to prepare them.
During the time that Dr. Sebi knew Adiakumba, she felt that it was very important for people of color to hear this message. She would urge Dr. Sebi to continue doing lectures so he can continue to spread the wellness campaign that he was currently on. Dr. Sebi would continue to do lectures in the United States. Dr. Sebi said that people in DC, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles were all excited about the lectures he was doing. Dr. Sebi would end up setting an office up in New York City to see patients on the weekends and then fly back to San Juan, Puerto Rico on Sundays. The end of the 1980s would end up being one of the most very important and defining time periods of Dr. Sebi's life and legacy. Dr. Sebi was running the USHA Herbal Research Institute, which was located at 616 Pacific Street in Brooklyn, New York. Dr. Sebi started running ads in the local newspaper, the Village Voice, and the New York Amsterdam News. Some of the ads that the USHA Research Institute ran in the local newspapers, the Village Voice and the New York Amsterdam News, read that AIDS had been cured, also that the Institute specialized in curing lupus, sickle cell anemia, male and female disorders, all using the African bio-mineral balance. Also, it mentioned that consumers who inquired about products were given a brochure claiming that USHA's natural therapy and the African bio-mineral balance had restored sight, strengthened weak nervous systems, relieve arthritis and asthma, and also reverse pathologies like cancer and malaria. These ads from the USHA Institute would run in these newspapers for a significant amount of time. At some point, the Manhattan Supreme Court was alerted. They would immediately step in and ordered the USHA Institute to cease business and to stop running the ads. The Institute was also ordered to return refunds to any customers that were not satisfied with their healing. Attorney General Robert Abrams indicted Dr. Sebi, and he was arrested on charges of unauthorized practice of medicine, which at that time was a Class E felony. Dr. Sebi was now facing the potential to go to jail for a very long time.
I should know that. Remember, I was arrested and charged with practicing medicine without a license. You stood by and watched them arrest me. Because you were a little bit more asleep, you didn't get up and say, well, hold it, he's defending our mother. Let us go see how we could help this institute. But no, the institute, I especially was arrested and charged with practicing medicine without a license because I said what? I cure AIDS, blindness, diabetes, lupus, herpes, sickle cell. It sounds fantastic. It sounds gross. It sounds like it is impossible. Sure, it is impossible because we forgot our mother and we have been entertaining the Western medicine. Western medicine said that there's no cure for any disease. So when the case started, I'm in front of the juries and the judge said, Dr. Sebi, would you please begin? Where do I begin? She said, begin wherever you wishes to begin because you have no counsel. Well, I didn't retain any counsel because there aren't any lawyers that could have defended me with what I come with because he doesn't know that. I would be crazy to even consider a defense. I say, Your Honor, I have been charged with practicing medicine without a license, selling products that are approved by the FDA, and claiming to cure AIDS and other diseases because I use herbs. She said, yes. I said, Your Honor, is it a fact that the Holy Bible teaches that the herbs are for the healing of the nations in the book of Genesis, Ezekiel, and Revelation? She said, yes. Is it a fact that the father of medicine, Mr. Hippocrates, 365 years before Christ was even born, this man was healing every disease known to man, establishing the school of medicine known today? You take the Hippocratic oath. So when you take the Hippocratic oath, Your Honor, did Hippocrates use herbs or chemicals? She said, herbs again. Bible says herbs, Hippocrates used herbs. I said, Your Honor, last question, and my case would rest. Is it a fact that the human body is carbon-based? She said yes. And that the substance that's going to complement the human body has to be carbon-based because the human body only accepts a substance through the process of chemical affinity. Electric body, electric food. She said, right, carbon-based, herbs again. I said, I rest my case.
Dr. Sebi also had proof of test results from actual medical professionals to bring into court, similar to this document. He also brought in witnesses to speak on his behalf.
To school.
Did I read it correctly, where there was some requirement for you to actually bring patients, a patient into court from each of those maladies, and that you brought multiple patients in court who, one, testified themselves, and that you had medical records, one showing that they were victims of the disease, and then showing that it had been cured by one doctor, and then a second doctor verifying what the first doctor had said?
Yes. We have to remember this, that whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. Mm-hmm. You better be prepared. The judge said that I had to bring one of every patient that I had cured, and there was one that said others. The others was a man that came from Italy. He was paralyzed. But I was supposed to take 9. I took 77.
You took 77 patients in court with you?
That's correct.
A historic decision was handed down in favor of Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi was found not guilty in the Brooklyn Supreme Court. It was a jury of 6 men and 6 women who determined that Dr. Sebi was not guilty on 2 counts of practicing medicine without a license. Dr. Sebi's attorney at the time, Simeon Greenway, brought up a lot of interesting points after the trial. He mentioned that there was never an attempt to determine what was inside of the contents of the herbal compound sold by the Usha Institute. Also, the attorney said that he felt like this wasn't a case of entrapment because there were 2 undercover agents that were sent to the Institute on 2 separate occasions, both wired with tape recorders to see if they would be given a medical diagnosis. The Usha Institute didn't make medical diagnoses according to an Usha employee. Individuals were required when coming into the Institute to fill out questionnaires in order to enable the Institute to monitor the client's health conditions, their diets, and also collect additional data for research purposes. This monumental court case that Dr. Sebi was found not guilty would bring a lot of recognition and notoriety to the Usha Institute, and Dr. Sebi would use this as a springboard to continue down his journey of healing and wellness.